You land at JFK after a long international flight, 5 months away from home. You're exhausted, jet lagged, already thinking about your apartment, your job, and getting back to normal. You do what you've done before: follow the signs, join the line, step up to the booth, and hand over your green card. The officer scans it. You expect a quick nod and a welcome back. Instead, there's a pause. The officer looks at the screen a little longer than normal. His expression changes. Then he looks up and says the words that instantly tighten your chest. Step aside for a moment. A second officer approaches holding a small device. He gestures toward a camera and gives short instructions. Face forward, don't move, don't smile. A flash goes off. Your photo is taken. You tell yourself it's routine, just another security step, nothing to worry about. But what many permanent residents don't realize is that the photo isn't just a photo. In many U.S. airports, facial recognition is now part of an expanding biometric entry-exit system that connects your identity to your travel events. And that's where the real risk begins. Not in the camera, but in what the computer already knows before you say a single word. Because the moment your green card is scanned, an officer can see a travel timeline, your departures, your returns, and how many days you were outside the United States. If that number looks high, the officer's job can shift from routine inspection to a residency review. And the next question, asked casually, as if it's small, can determine what happens next. Why were you outside the United States for so long? What happens in the next 5 minutes can decide whether you walk out and go home, or whether you end up in secondary inspection, pressured to sign documents, or facing allegations that you abandoned your permanent residence. The trap isn't the technology itself. The trap is how the data shapes the questioning, and how nervous, tired travelers accidentally talk themselves into trouble. Welcome back to US Policy Brief. I'm Michael, and in this video, I'm going to explain what's happening at US airports as biometric tracking expands, why some green card holders are being questioned more aggressively after longer trips abroad, and how immigration attorneys recommend handling airport questions so you don't create damaging evidence against yourself by accident. This is general information, not legal advice, and if you have a complex history or a long absence, it's worth getting individualized guidance before you travel. Let's start with the system itself, because a lot of people misunderstand it. For years, the government has collected biometrics from many travelers, especially fingerprints, and it has long tracked entries in various databases. What's changed in recent years is the speed, coverage, and automation. In many airports, facial recognition is used to confirm identity and link an arrival or departure to a specific person. That creates cleaner travel records than the old days of missing passport stamps or inconsistent manual entries. From the government's perspective, it's about accuracy and enforcement efficiency. From a traveler's perspective, it means your travel history is easier to pull up instantly, and extended absences are harder to explain away with vague answers. Here's why that matters for lawful permanent residents. A green card gives you the right to live in the United States permanently, but it comes with an expectation. The United States must remain your primary home. Immigration law does allow travel. It allows emergencies. It allows extended stays abroad in certain situations. What it does not allow, in the government's view, is quietly relocating your life to another country while keeping a green card as a backup plan. The legal question is not, did you travel? The legal question is, did you maintain U.S. residence, or did your actions show you gave it up? That's where the famous 6-month rule comes in, and this is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in immigrant communities. Many people believe that if you're outside the US for more than 6 months, you automatically lose your green card. That is not how the law works. There is no automatic cancellation at day 181. However, once an absence is lengthy, it can trigger closer questioning at the border. It can also create complications for other things, like the continuous residence rules for naturalization. And when technology makes the absence obvious, officers can move into more detailed questioning faster than before. There is also another timeline people forget. Being outside the United States for a year or more can create even more serious reentry problems, especially if you do not have a reentry permit or another document that supports your return. Again, this doesn't mean everyone who stayed out that long automatically loses status, but it does mean you should expect scrutiny, and you should not walk into that scrutiny unprepared. Now let's talk about what officers are actually looking at when you return. They're not only checking your identity, they're evaluating patterns. How long were you gone this time? How often do you take long trips? Do you seem to live abroad and visit the US? Do you have a job here? Do you maintain a home here? Do you file taxes in the US as a resident? Is your spouse or your children living in the United States? Those are the kinds of factors that go into what lawyers call the totality of the circumstances. That phrase matters because it protects you from losing status based on just one detail. A long trip alone does not prove abandonment. A sick parent abroad does not prove abandonment. A delayed flight, a complicated family emergency, or a temporary business responsibility does not automatically mean you moved away. But officers will weigh everything together, and the first story you tell at the airport can shape how they view your case. This is where so many good people get hurt, not because they broke a law, but because they answer questions in a way that accidentally paints the wrong picture. When you're exhausted and anxious, it's natural to over-explain. You want the officer to understand. You want to be seen as honest. So you tell a long story. You talk about caregiving, property, a business, a relative's needs, why you stayed, how hard it was, why you couldn't come back sooner. But in an inspection setting, long emotional explanations can backfire. Officers take notes. They summarize. They use legal language. Stayed abroad to care for family can be recorded as extended foreign obligations. Handling my business overseas can be recorded as ongoing economic ties outside the US. I didn't realize it was that long can be recorded as lack of awareness of residency responsibilities. None of that means the officer is trying to twist your words, but it does mean you must understand how statements get reduced into an official record. So what is the safer approach? It's not to be evasive, and it's never to lie. The safer approach is disciplined communication. Answer what was asked, keep it factual, and connect it to the key legal point. Your permanent home is in the United States, and your trip was temporary. You can acknowledge the reason you traveled without building a narrative that makes your life sound centered abroad. For example, if an officer asks, "Why were you gone so long?" a structured answer is usually better than a long story. Something like, "I was abroad for a family medical situation. My residence is in New York, and I'm returning to my job and home." That is truthful, direct, and it keeps the focus on U.S. residents. If the officer asks for more, you can provide more, but you don't start by giving a speech that hands them extra angles to question. And yes, officers may ask follow-ups. They may ask where you live, what you do for work, whether you own or rent, whether your spouse is here, whether you filed taxes, and whether you intend to stay in the U.S. going forward. Those are not trick questions. They are residency questions. Your job is to answer them calmly and consistently. If you have strong ties, mention them briefly. Your lease, your mortgage, your employer, your children's school, your U.S. tax filings, your U.S. bank accounts, your doctor, your daily life. You are not arguing a court case at the booth. You are providing a clear snapshot that your life is anchored here. Now, let's address the moment that scares people the most: secondary inspection. If you're told to step aside, it does not automatically mean you are losing your green card. Secondary inspection is often used when an officer wants time to verify information, review records, or ask more questions away from the line. It can feel intimidating because you might wait, your documents might be held temporarily, and the questions may become more detailed. But the same strategy applies. Stay calm, answer carefully, and avoid volunteering unnecessary details that create confusion. Secondary inspection is also where a very serious issue can appear. Paperwork that relates to giving up your permanent resident status. Many people only learn about this after it's in front of them. One example is Form I-407, which is used to record abandonment of lawful permanent resident status. Some people legitimately choose to sign it because they truly moved away and don't intend to live in the US anymore. But exhausted travelers sometimes feel pressured to sign it just to end the stress of the moment. That can be a life-changing mistake. Here is the key principle immigration attorneys repeat. Do not sign anything you don't understand. And do not sign a voluntary abandonment form if you do not actually intend to abandon your status. If an officer presents paperwork and you're unsure, it is reasonable to say, calmly and respectfully, that you do not wish to abandon your permanent residence and that you want to speak with an immigration attorney before signing any documents. You can also ask to speak with a supervisor. You are not required to waive your rights because you're tired. Another misunderstanding is that a border officer can simply cancel a green card on the spot and deport you without process. Lawful permanent residents generally have stronger due process protections than many non-immigrant visitors. If the government believes you abandoned residence and you contest that, the issue may be referred for review in immigration court, where an immigration judge can evaluate the totality of circumstances. That legal process exists precisely because residency questions can be complex and fact-specific. In court, evidence matters. Judges look at what you maintained in the United States while you were away: a home, a job, family ties, taxes, a consistent return pattern, and credible reasons for temporary travel. Many permanent residents who face tough airport questioning are still able to prove they did not abandon residence, especially when they kept strong ties and have documentation. But it is much harder if you signed away your status in a stressful moment, or if the notes from your airport interview make it look like you were living abroad permanently. This is why the best protection starts before you ever board the plane. If you know your trip could be long, months, not weeks, talk to an immigration attorney before you go or while you're abroad if plans change. Consider whether you should apply for a re-entry permit before leaving. A re-entry permit is not a magic shield, but it is strong evidence that you planned a temporary absence and intended to keep U.S. residence. It can also make re-entry smoother for certain extended trips. Just as important, maintain your U.S. ties in ways you can prove. Keep your lease or mortgage active if possible. Keep your U.S. job or a documented leave arrangement. File your U.S. taxes properly as a resident if that is required in your situation. Keep U.S. bank accounts active. Keep your phone line, your mailing address, your health insurance, your driver's license, and other daily life connections where appropriate. These are the exact factors that support you if questions arise. Also, think carefully about how your travel pattern looks over time. One long trip for a genuine reason is different from repeated long absences that make it appear you live abroad and visit the US. Technology makes those patterns easier to see. As travel records become more complete and automated, the government's ability to flag patterns increases. That doesn't mean you should avoid travel forever. It means you should treat extended travel as something that requires planning, documentation, and awareness. Now let's bring it back to that moment at JFK. Your green card is scanned. The system shows an absence length. The officer asks why you were gone. If you don't understand the legal framework, that moment feels like a trap you can't control. But if you understand what's happening, you can respond in a way that protects you. You cooperate with the photo. You answer questions directly. You keep your responses factual. You emphasize your U.S. residence and your return to your home here. And if the situation escalates, you stay calm, you don't sign away your status, and you ask for the chance to get legal guidance. That is the difference between panic and preparation. And in an era where border decisions are increasingly driven by data and automated travel histories, preparation is one of the most valuable tools you have. If you found this helpful, subscribe to US Policy Brief for clear updates on immigration policy and practical guidance on how changes affect real people at airports, consulates, and USCIS offices. Share this with a green card holder who travels often or has family abroad, because many people only learn these rules after they're already in trouble. I'm Michael, and I'll see you in the next video.